Jane and Jim Reddout certainly like to be on the go. Last year, even when we had to shelter in place a lot, they would just get in their car and go for a drive. And when the theaters were able to be safely open again, they like to go to the theater once a week. Jane loves the arts. Jane also loves kids. She's taught first grade and fourth grade, both for many years, and she's got a master's degree. And she's very blessed, she said, because she has 7 grandchildren, and they all live very near her, so she gets to see them quite often, and that truly is a blessing. So let's find out more about Jane. Where did your life start, Jane?
In a small town of Ripley, Oklahoma.
And talk a bit about your early childhood. I know your dad served in the National Guard.
Yes. We were in Ripley, Oklahoma because he was coaching basketball and football, and in the next few years he moved to Seminole and Guthrie coaching, and then he was called up by the Coast Guard along with about 20 other coaches in Oklahoma, and was sent to New York to do training to become a chief. And their trainer was Jack Dempsey, and as a result, after his training, we were sent to California. Alameda was where he was stationed, and we were there for 2 years. At that time, it was just my mother, my sister, and myself and my father. And then when he was shipped to New Guinea, we went back to Oklahoma, where my second sister was born.
Well, it was kind of interesting to me that the military or the National Guard were picking up on coaches.
The Coast Guard needed trainers. Trainers are the ones who make them physically fit. And I guess because they were all coaches, they didn't go through the regular system of being enlisted.
Well, they have the background for it. I guess that was pretty good. You attended Oklahoma State University. You married Jim. So talk about those years.
Okay. I was at Oklahoma State University in 1957. Jim went right out of high school into the Navy, so I was 2 years ahead of him. We married in 1961, and I started teaching school, and he finished his degree then at Central State University. We had our first child. He was then hired by Southwestern Bell, and we moved quite a few places, Edmond, Bartlesville, Tulsa, back to Oklahoma City, and we ended up in St. Louis and spent 20 years in St. Louis with Southwestern Bell.
So what were the names of your other 2 children?
Our first one is Mike, our second one, a son, is Tim, and our daughter is Carrie.
Okay, good. So you did move around a lot with his job with Southwestern Bell. You did mention that before too. But at one time you spent a lot of, or at least a few months, traveling from house to house and holding tiny babies and rocking them.
We did.
3 of them. Okay.
We did because being a teacher, I had the summer off, and our first 3 grandchildren were born within a 4-week period. One in Mexico City, one in Oklahoma City, and one in Tulsa, and we were living in St. Louis. So I lived out of a suitcase and got to hold babies on my shoulder all summer long. It was wonderful.
Those are wonderful memories,
yes.
Aren't they? Yeah, for sure. You did take time off to raise your family, but you returned to teaching when your youngest was in 6th grade. So talk about that.
I had stayed at home for 16 years, and our oldest son was a sophomore in college when we moved. So I started working, but it wasn't until after they were all in college, and I started back to teaching. And when our last one got out of college, I went back, and that's when I completed my master's.
And you taught 10 years in first grade? And
Yes, and then 2 years in second grade.
okay.
But my first teaching experience before I started having children was physical education.
Okay. And you taught fourth grade as well, did you not?
Yes.
For quite a few years?
No, just for 2 years.
Oh, just
for 2 years.
Okay. At 60, you and Jim retired to Table Rock Lake and traveled extensively. So tell me where all you have been.
We moved to Table Rock Lake mainly because we wanted a place where our children would want to come. And so during the winters, which is not a lot of fun on the lake, we traveled we had traveled to Europe before, to Oberammergau was our first European trip. And then we have been to Africa. We did a Rhine River cruise. We've been to Australia. And then one year we did a road trip in the United States and ended up from Chicago all across the northern states and ended up in Pasadena to hit one of my bucket lists, which was the Rose Bowl Parade.
Okay. And that trip took you about 3 months
It did.
on the road?
We were on the road for 3 months and loved every minute of it.
And I know that you've been to Hawaii. That's a favorite place.
Yes, we thought we were going to just continue during different places, but we, on the road trip that year, we went to Hawaii for a month, 2 weeks on Maui and 2 on the Big Island. Fell in love with the Big Island, went back and started thinking about it. We started with about 6 weeks the second time we went to Hawaii. Then we started extending it a little bit, and then about the last 10 years, we spent about three months of the year in Hawaii.
Yes, okay. So you're kind of addicted to Hawaii.
Yes.
Do you think you'd ever like to go back?
Oh, I miss it a lot. It just felt like home. Every time we got off the airplane, it just felt like home.
You also like cruising. What do you think about that?
Yes, we've done several cruises. Second year we was retired, we did a week cruise with some friends. And one of our best cruises was with the entire family. We did a Caribbean cruise to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. And everybody loved it. And we took a second one a few years later and just did a very short one at Christmas time over the holiday and spent New Year's Eve on a cruise, and everybody decided that was the best way to celebrate New Year's they'd ever done.
So did everybody on the ship usually kind of get together and celebrate the whole
There
thing?
everybody was on the top deck, even the crew. There were had to have at least half the crew up there, and fireworks, and it was the best.
Yeah. You have been blessed to have your family close to you, at least close enough that you do see them often, you said. So how often would you say you get together, and what kind of special celebrations do you have when you get together?
Well, birthdays are probably the best, and then we always celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then all of our children went to OSU, our children, and 5 of our grandchildren have. So football weekends have always been family time, tailgating, and then
Oh, do you go to the games then?
Oh, we had season tickets for 20 years. One of our sons still has season tickets, but
Tailgating at somebody's garage then, or tailgating at
no, it was usually setting up a tent. You know, if you haven't ever been to OSU campus, I don't know when they started tailgating so much. They didn't when our children were in college, but after they got out of college, we tailgated a lot. And you just bring food and have fun until the game starts.
Well, it just seems like all kinds of people in the community get together for them and talk to each other. It's not just one group. What brought you to Epworth, and what is special about living here?
What brought us here is my parents were here 30 years ago. They were the first one in their apartment. And my mother was here for 14 years. My father was here for 4. And we knew how they loved it and visited them many times. They were so well taken care of. It gave Jim and I the experience of having a great retirement. And because we knew of the care, and we wanted our children to have the same wonderful retirement that we've had, it gives them the freedom that we had.
That's good. I'm sure the management would like to hear. I'm sure they have probably heard it from you, but if not, please tell them they'd like to hear that. What do you think about children's education today? So you've been you were an educator for many of your adult years, so what do you think about it today?
Well, I do think it's changed quite a bit. The last year I taught was the first year I had experienced a computer in my classroom, just one computer in my classroom. Hadn't even started putting grades on the computer. It was just slightly used. And now, I think technology, I would completely be lost with the technology. And I do think that they need to be together, not just do it all on. Right, entirely. I think they do need the experience of a teacher right there and classmates to develop some kind of social skills.
Well, I think that experiment, which nobody wanted to have, did show how important it was, how important the classroom was. But of course, we do want everybody to be safe from the virus as well. Well, you did tell us one thing on your bucket list that you did achieve. And when I asked you, you said there were 3 things on your bucket list. So what were the other 2 and how did that work out?
Well, when I retired, I wanted to start gardening, but mainly flowers. We didn't have a garden to raise vegetables. We had flowers. And Jim, my husband, asked, when I told him that was one thing I wanted to do, he said, well, you've never done that. And I said, well, I've never had time to do that. And the other thing was to travel, which we got to do. Go to the Rose Bowl. That was on my bucket list. We watched the Rose Bowl all the time on New Year's. And it was everything I thought it would be.
Oh, good. And New England, didn't you?
The third one was to see the fall foliage up in the northeast. And we did that. It was while we were living at Table Rock Lake, and I decided Table Rock Lake had just as beautiful foliage as the northeast had.
That was lovely, because you didn't have to travel far to see the beauty. You could have it right there every year. Thank you for your story. It was lovely.